Hey guys, welcome to the plant nutrient video series. This first video is about nitrogen, the most important nutrient to a plant. Now the reason why nitrogen is just so important to a plant is because nitrogen is actually the key component in amino acids and proteins that cause the cellular division. So cellular division is basically the plant's ability to grow, as those cells divide and create more. So when I'm saying that nitrogen is responsible for cellular division, it's responsible for turning these leaves into larger solar panels. Now, people realize that plants get their energy from the sun. That's because every one of these leaves on a tomato plant, or any plant for that matter, is like a solar panel. Well, the green, that chlorophyll, believe it or not, but nitrogen is actually a key component in the molecule chlorophyll, which gives the plant its green and also acts like an inverter for that solar panel. So the leaf surface area is able to collect that sunlight, and the chlorophyll turns that sunlight into usable energy by means of the glycolysis. So this plant is producing starch by using the sun's energy. And those starchy sugars is how the plant survives. It also gives those starchy sugars to the fungus that's around the roots, and in return, those roots transfer the water and the nutrients, or the roots of the fungus transfer the water of the soil as well as the elements and the nutrients that the plant needs through the roots of the plant. And then through the stomata, we got that evapotranspirational pull gradient that creates a gradient. So our water goes from the root system all the way to the top of the leaves. Now these nutrients are vital for this. Now let's take a look. Now this isn't what a molecule of chlorophyll looks like, but I just made this up. So let's use our imagination that this is a molecule of chlorophyll, which is what that green of the plant is in order to turn the sun's energy into its own energy. Well, think of nitrogen as the blue balls, okay? So if we don't have nitrogen and we just try to use, oh, now we got some hydrogens left. Those just fly out the window, right? Well, what's this? I don't know. Doesn't look like anything to me. It's certainly not looking like the chlorophyll that I showed you before. So I wanted to give you a visual of just how important that nitrogen is. Because when that nitrogen links up, now all of a sudden we have that molecule of chlorophyll. So when you're experiencing chlorotic leaves, meaning they're a yellowish color, it means that most likely you're low on nitrogen. Also, if you're experiencing smaller leaves on the plant. So a lack of nitrogen will actually, one, cause the plant to not have as big as leaves, meaning they're not as big as solar panels. And two, that greenness, they're not as efficient of a solar panel as they could be if we manage those plants properly. But like I keep reminding you guys, with this education comes responsibility. With knowledge always comes responsibility. And the reason why I want to teach you guys about these nutrients is so we can understand them better. For example, the soil can only hold so much nitrogen, and if we put any more nitrogen down, it just leaches into our waterways and creates and helps algal blooms, which are bad for the environment. Now these algal blooms are nature's way of trying to remove the excess nutrients that we put into our waterways. It's natural for her. She doesn't see animals dying as a bad thing. Earth is just so darn old it doesn't even matter. It's always just changing. Our perception of the planet is simply that. It's our perception of the planet. But the more that we can get a perception on how molecules work and how nutrients work and how elements work, this is the key. Because like you can see in my potassium video that I've also made, sometimes potassium is a deliverer for the nitrogen. you need that potassium to help carry and follow through the nitrogen. So even though your field or your garden or your lawn might have plenty of nitrogen, it may not be able to use it properly because there's not enough potassium. And potassium affects the water transport of a plant. So if that nutrient, like nitrogen, cannot get from the soil to the top of this plant because of a potassium deficiency, then it very well may look like a nitrogen deficiency, which is often mistakenly corrected by adding more nitrogen onto the field or lawn than what's needed. And anytime we exceed that limit, it goes straight into our environment. You guys can do a soil sample, and when you get your soil sample, look for what's called the cation exchange capacity. Now, I could take my cation exchange capacity, let's say it's a 12, because I have sandy soils down here in Florida. Some of my fields are actually a 9 cation exchange capacity. Where back in Kansas, it might have been a 23. But let's just go ahead and say that we have a cation exchange capacity of 12. Well, that means that I'll take that number times 10, which is 120, and then I'll subtract what's called residual nitrogen, meaning how much nitrogen I think I already have in my field, which according to soil samples looks like I'm holding about 40 pounds of nitrogen per acre. So I take that 120 that I got by taking my number of cation exchange capacity, which was 12, multiplying it by 10, 120, then I subtract that 40. That tells me 80 pounds per acre. I cannot put any more than 80 pounds of nitrogen per acre, or it's not going to do me and my plants any benefit. It's simply just going to leach into the environment. Well, the harsh reality is some corn farmers, for example, put on 180 pounds of nitrogen. Wait, that means that we just put on 100 pounds of nitrogen that wasn't even used by the plant and our crop and just leached into our waterways? And then we complain about algae blooms. Well, that would be like me over fertilizing my tomato plant with nitrogen and then complaining about picking off too many tomatoes. Well, if you don't want to pick that many tomatoes, then don't feed it so much. The more understanding that we get about these nutrients, the more understanding that we can have about the natural world around us. Nitrogen, for example, this fertilizer is infinite. But we don't need to be using it like it's infinite. And I say that it's infinite because, believe it or not, guys, above every acre of land is 36,000 pounds of atmospheric nitrogen.